Olá, bom dia. Carl Munson here with a COVID coronavirus update for you in Portugal in English. That's a service we're offering where we are live streaming on the Facebook page. We are a podcast too, available on most platforms. Spotify is probably the easiest to find, and our YouTube channel, of course. Thanks to everybody who's using this as a way to stay connected, and do please leave me comments on how I can improve this for you. I should say thank you to you too for providing this, allowing me to provide this service, because it's helping me stay sane and useful too. So let's start with the numbers in Portugal, and I'll do some screen sharing with you. And we're looking at the actual figures currently in Portugal. There you see total cases now 245. Total recoveries, that's really great news. 3 people have now recovered. Active cases 242 therefore, and 9 people in a serious or critical situation. And that's the space where we are doing all this social isolation and social distancing to make sure that the people who are in a serious and critical situation can get the care and attention they need from the relatively small number of facilities that we have across the world, basically. And we need to slow that flow down towards those serious and critical care situations. So the figure for Portugal, it looks like it's being well managed here currently. 24 cases per 1 million of population. And it looks like it's pretty much doubled, doesn't it, in a week? I mean, we need to keep an eye on that to see if this is an exponential or linear increase, and see how the measures that we're taking are affecting the growth of the numbers. So let's look at what's been introduced in terms of government implementation. And we'll share the website, as we do, of Safe Communities Portugal. Fantastic lifeline and source of information at this time. Sorry, that's not the right one. Let's come back. We'll come back to that in a minute, actually, to look at the state of emergency versus state of alert that's being discussed by Marcelo Rebelo, the president, who's halfway through his current self-quarantine. So let me find the correct screen to share with you. Safe Communities Portugal. And that's going to be this one here. Here we go. And I'm not going to keep you too long this morning. I want to keep these updates brief and to the point, but let's just work our way through this. This is the latest situation report from Safe Communities Portugal yesterday at 1700 hours, the 15th of March, Sunday. And this is the big thing under discussion at the moment is whether to close the Spanish-Portuguese border. And the Prime Minister announced yesterday, in relation to the closure of the border with Spain, after having been in contact with his Spanish counterpart and with Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, the president, it was decided that as of tomorrow, after the Union meeting, or European Union, with the Minister of Internal Affairs and Health of the European Union, EU, so it's a bit of a mouthful, but anyway, measures will be taken to have a restriction in the cases of entries related to tourism and leisure, which should extend until Easter. Tomorrow, today that is now, the rules will be defined that must go through to maintain the free movement of goods and guarantee the workers' rights. But there must be a restriction for the purposes of tourism or leisure, which is important considering that we know that on Easter holidays there is traditionally an increase in tourism across that border, of course, said Antonio Costa. We will not disturb the circulation of goods, but there will be Portuguese, Spanish, or both controls. Border posts will remain and controls will be established. Tourism will not be in the near future between Portuguese and Spanish, said the Prime Minister, who spoke this afternoon by video conference with the Spanish counterpart, Pedro Sanchez. The Prime Minister was also questioned about possible declaration of a state of emergency in Portugal, but recalled that this decision is up to the President of the Republic, guaranteeing, however, that the government will not oppose any suggestions that the president makes there, of course, whenever the president deems it so. The government will be here to execute that order, says Mr. Costa. He affirmed, clarifying, however, that one cannot exhaust all the ammunition. This is an important point, as it verifies that fatigue is already noticed in other countries. Antonio Costa also revealed that Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa will convene a council of state in order to have a broader option on the fight against the new coronavirus in Portugal. And in terms of Madeira, it looks as though they're keeping the airport open there, because the only way to get in and out of Madeira is by airplane or sea, by boat, ship. And that might be choking the lifeline, the very lifeline. It's not as if there are highways through to Madeira. So at the moment, it looks as though the airport is staying open. So that's the big news. The announcement will come today about a border control or not. I suspect that will happen today. The border between Portugal and Spain will be controlled. So let's get a bit more about this state of emergency distinction. We're currently in a state of alert here in Portugal. And from the Portugal resident sharing this story. Now, another good news source. There are two English-speaking newspapers in Portugal. One is the Portugal News, and the other Portugal resident. They're both quite Algarve-focused, as you might expect. This story from Natasha Don, state of emergency, closing land, sea, and air frontiers, is in the hands of the president, as we heard in that report from Safe Communities Portugal. Just share a little bit of this with you. And it mentions that he is halfway through his 14-day period of voluntary isolation. An excellent example to set, I thought, when he did that. Further restrictions on movement were announced this afternoon, the most radical of which has been to ban tourism from Spain, and more are likely to come, this article says. This was published yesterday. The focus of all these efforts is to keep people from mixing, picking the virus up by going about their normal routines. The crisis being that if too many people become infected at once, the health service will collapse. And this is a really important thing. This is what we're doing this for. And it occurred to me that it's so amazing that the vast majority of people can be involved in easing that flow through to the emergency care. And we're doing this with people we don't even know. It's a really beautiful thing. I know it's a terrible, situation, awful situation we have at the moment with so much uncertainty and difficulty, but still, this process of self-isolation, of social distancing, will mean that people we don't even know will get the care we need. And that's a really wonderful thing that occurred to me anyway. I don't know if you would agree, but we're doing this for strangers. And I'm sure those people who really need the help will be glad of it, because they're just, wherever you look in the world, it seems, apart from China, possibly the only exception, there aren't enough ventilators for the predicted surge of numbers. So that's why we are taking these measures to self-isolate and socially distance. For a country of 10 million people, this is the facts and figures for Portugal. For a country of 10 million people, we have a maximum of 600 ventilators. So there you go. That's not a lot, is it, per capita? Most of them in use right now with other patients, according to pneumologist Philippe Fresh, interviewed by LTP Trish. In other words, if a wave of critical victims hits, there will be literally no way of saving them. So that's why, folks, as difficult as it is, and as much as we're missing chocolate and wine already, possibly, let's keep socially distant, let's keep self-isolated, and ease that flow towards the hospitals. This, in the nightmare scenario that authorities are trying to everything to avoid, Portugal's failings are mirrored, if not quite as acutely, in every country of the world. Yes, so it seems quite harsh to call it a failing, but I mean, that's just a state of play at the moment. A state of emergency cannot run for longer than 2 weeks, although it can be successively extended, writes Radio Renacencia this evening. In the case of this pandemic and confirming forecasts of doctors and researchers, we could live in a state of emergency for some weeks. 2 weeks after that will not see us anywhere near the calendar moment at which health authorities believe this outbreak will peak. So we're going into speculation there, but I think the president has that call and is putting together a council to stay on top of this, and the prime minister will just go with the choice of the president. In his recorded message to the country this evening, that was last night or the night before, President Marcelo took time to praise all sectors that were working flat out to keep the country going against challenges he described as enormous, certain to last weeks, more than weeks, months. It wasn't an official message, he added. That will come on Wednesday from Belém after the Council of State. It was a personal message from the president, from citizen Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, to say not only that we will win this battle, but to thank everyone who is standing together to face it. I love that guy. So there you go. That's the position from the president. If you do want to share anything, please do via this live stream broadcast. And I said I was going to keep it short and sweet. I will go now just to conclude with a lovely, uplifting idea. And stay in touch with us on these live streams in the morning. I'll do these at 9 o'clock and continue the conversation and the support, please, folks, on Stay Positive Portugal on Facebook, where we have been describing or it's elaborating on this idea that came from England, and it is the viral kindness phenomenon that I think is a beautiful idea. And let me share that with you now. I need to make sure. I was just working on my website before I came on it. I just need to publish it. Would you believe? So I'm doing that now. And I will. Yes, the idea came from a lady called Becky Wass, anyway, who is in the UK, in Cornwall, I believe. And she just wanted to do something to help people locally in the face of socialization. What am I talking about? Social isolation. That's an interesting slip, isn't it? And it's a very opposite. And of course, social distancing, self-isolation and social distancing. And she came up with this fabulous idea. Let me share that with you now, of viral kindness. And I will. Well, I asked Katia, beyond Lisbon's Katia Lima, who you'll know if you're a regular with Good Morning Portugal. She's the ace translator here with this viral kindness postcard. The original is here. Look, hello. If you're self-isolating, I can help. And we talked about this on the podcast yesterday. Thinking it was a lovely idea where you can offer help to your neighbours who are self-isolating with an offer to pick up shopping, posting mail, friendly phone call, or urgent supplies. Here it is now in Portuguese. So if you want to use that, it's downloadable from goodmorningportugal.com, as you can see on my screen there. Go to the viral kindness tab, and it's a PDF that you can download and use. And people seem to be thinking that's a nice idea. I think it's a fabulous idea. And you may want to bear in mind that on this page is an English translation, so you know what you're giving to your Portuguese neighbours if you feel they could do with that sort of help. So we'll leave it there this morning here on the live stream and the podcast and the YouTube channel. Do stay in touch via Portugal. Stay positive, Portugal. And Maria says, thanks for the translation you posted. My absolute pleasure, Maria Costa. I really hope it helps. And let's all stay in touch and connected and networking and looking after each other in these times of self-isolation and social distancing in the Stay Positive Portugal group. I hope that's a useful facility for people as well. And there's all sorts of beautiful community initiatives busting out all over the place in the face of a little bit of that early panic, which was only to be expected. But it looks like there are lots of signs of the best being brought out in people by this challenge as well. So I'll leave it there for today. I'll see you again tomorrow at 9 and talk to you in the meantime over social media. Take care and bye for now. Boa sorte and saúde to you.